Namaskar and welcome to Diplomatic Dispatch. I'm your host, Vikas Swarup. May 25 is Africa Day. It was on this day in 1963 that 32 African countries signed the Charter of the Organization of African Unity, the OAU, which later evolved into the African Union. So tonight, our focus will be on Africa and on India's strong and long-standing ties with its countries. India and Africa are connected by ancient maritime links based on the monsoon winds and the presence of an Indian diaspora in many African countries. Mahatma Gandhi spent 21 years of his life in South Africa, where he honed the technique of satyagraha. Independent India led a worldwide movement against colonialism and extended moral and material support to African countries in their struggle for independence. This was cemented by solidarity within the non-aligned movement and the fight against racism. India, after all, was in the forefront of the anti-apartheid campaign in South Africa. Over the past 7 decades, India-Africa ties have seen a steady growth, but they have specially transformed in the last 10 years, led by unprecedented political exchanges at all levels. Today, it is a vibrant partnership animated by the spirit of developing together as equals and focused on capacity building, development cooperation, and economic and technological initiatives. In July 2018, Prime Minister Narendra Modi addressed the Ugandan Parliament during his state visit and outlined the 10 guiding principles for India-Africa engagement, the first of which states that Africa will be the top of our priorities. Africa's importance to India as a development partner first became visible with the decision to enter into a structured engagement with African countries under the framework of the India-Africa Forum Summit. 3 editions have been held so far, in 2008, 2011 and 2015, with the last one bringing together leaders and representatives from all 54 African countries to New Delhi. In March 2018, the Government of India approved the opening of 18 new Indian missions in Africa to implement the commitments under the India-Africa Forum Summit 3. The first of these resident missions opened in Rwanda in July 2018, and when all the new missions are opened, it will bring the number of resident Indian missions in Africa from 29 to 47. The duty-free tariff preference scheme announced by India for LDCs benefited 38 African nations and has contributed towards the steady increase in our trade figures, which touched US $69.7 billion in 2018-19. Symbolic of the deepening India-Africa relations is the fact that India is now the continent's 4th largest trading partner and the 5th largest investor in Africa, with cumulative investments of more than US $70 billion. Today, Bharti Airtel runs networks in 17 African countries. Mahindra provides tractors, and Ranbaxy and Cipla supply life-saving antiretroviral drugs to most of the continent. Despite being a developing country with huge domestic challenges, India has played an important role in building African capacity. In fact, African countries are the largest recipients under the ITEC program. Africa is also the 2nd largest recipient of India's overseas assistance. A total of 207 LOCs amounting to US $12.361 billion have been extended to 42 African countries to implement 337 projects like power plants, power transmission lines, distribution networks, railways, roads, ports, agriculture and irrigation, industrial units, food processing units, skill development, etc. Our cooperation in digital started in 2004 with the Pan-African E-Network project on teleeducation and telemedicine, which was the brainchild of former President APJ Abdul Kalam and is also being carried forward through the medium of E-Vidya Bharati and E-Arogya Bharati. During the COVID pandemic, India sent medicines and health-related supplies and equipment, including vaccines, to over 40 African countries despite our own domestic needs. India is also assisting Africa in combating terrorism, supporting peacekeeping and cybersecurity. Indian peacekeepers are currently serving in DRC, Abyei and South Sudan. The deployment of an all-female police unit of the United Nations in Liberia in February 2016 and the Indian Navy's stellar role in curbing piracy off the Horn of Africa have earned widespread admiration. So let us analyze India's partnership with Africa in greater detail. And to do that, I have with me two distinguished guests. Ambassador Gurjit Singh has been India's envoy to Germany, Indonesia, ASEAN, Ethiopia, and the African Union. He was the Sherpa for the first two India-Africa summits. He has written books on India's relations with Ethiopia, Japan, Indonesia, and Germany, and his most recent book is titled The Harambee Factor, India-Africa Economic and Development Partnership. His Excellency Ahmed Sule is the High Commissioner of Nigeria to India. A career diplomat with many years' experience, he served previously in Nigeria's missions in London, New York, Ottawa, and Riyadh. Let me start with you, Ambassador Singh. You begin your book by stating that the 21st century, labeled as the Asian century, is now also becoming an African century. What are the reasons behind this optimism?
Well, like India, Africa has many commonalities that we are both emerging and developing countries and economies. More than that, I think Africa and India both have very youthful populations and the median age is around 19-20, which means that the demographic dividend is coming. You could have as many as 700 million people coming into the workforce. And if they all were productively employed, just see the economic activity which will happen. The other factor is that during this period of the 21st century, Africa transitioned from an aid recipient to a greater trading partner and a bigger recipient of FDI. So this matrix changed and it became what I call Africa as the big opportunity. Certainly with the pandemic, some knocks have taken place, but the potential that is coming from Africa's own reorganization, the Africa Continental FTA, the Africa Medicines Agency, the Africa Health Agency, all these are putting a new impetus in taking Africa forward into implementing the Sustainable Development Goals.
But still, there are some challenges that Africa faces. Could you enumerate some of them?
Well, the challenges were if you don't live up to your promise. For instance, you are a great attractor of FDI, but if you don't have the right ambience and the cost of finance is too high, sometimes the political risk, the guarantees are too high. So these impede. But I think this could be handled. What happened was that the pandemic set back many things.
Yes.
Simple thing. The Africa Continental FTA said, open your borders. The pandemic said, shut them. So these were contradictions happening at the same time, but these were not of African making. Therefore, I believe that Africa as opportunity exists and it is back on track.
High Commissioner Sule, now Nigeria and India share a very close and fruitful partnership. We are the largest democracy in the world. You are the largest democracy in Africa. Could you tell us what are some of the main pillars on which this friendship and this partnership rests?
Well, to begin, I wish to thank you so much for having me. First, Nigeria and India maintain a very warm and cordial bilateral relations. This dates back to the time of the first Indian Prime Minister, Pandit Nawaz Nehru, that decided to open, a diplomatic house in Nigeria in 1958, which shows the care.
2 years before your independence.
2 years before independence, yes. Which indicates Indian interest in Nigerian independence. And itself, to me, is also a moral booster, because you mentioned that during the campaigns for the apartheid and the racism, India gave material and moral support. So this is one of the moral support that India gave to Nigeria. And you see, if you look at, we have about 135 companies that operate in Nigeria, Indian companies. And these are in manufacturing, pharmaceuticals, health, agriculture, and among others. And India and Nigeria, if you look at our relationship in terms of, the experiences that we have together, like political struggles under the same, colonial master, after our independence, then the countries come up together. The past, historic visit of the first Prime Minister remain the cornerstone of our bilateral relation between India and Nigeria. And the leaders, created confidence and friendliness, which continues to blossom up to now. So, regarding the basis of which this relationship, based is, India is open to African, to Nigerian development. We have confirmed that even recently, during this pandemic, India supplies medicine and equipment, including vaccines, when even the whole world is lacking it. And despite the fact, India too has its own domestic problem. But despite all this, India still provided Nigeria with vaccines. And last 2 weeks ago, the foreign minister of Nigeria was in India to attend the recent dialogue. During that period, we had a sidelines meeting with his counterpart, the Indian Minister of External Affairs, Dr. J. Shankar, and also the minister used the opportunity also to formally launch Nigeria-India Business Council. This is a platform that we intend to coordinate and facilitate businesses between the two countries.
And I believe oil is also a binding factor. We are purchasing a lot of Nigerian oil.
Yeah, India is one of our largest purchasers of our own crude oil, which is about $10 billion, which is a big deal, And in addition to that, we have a lot of students who are studying here in India,
yes,
more than any other African country. And also Nigerians do come to India also for medical tourism. In fact, during even our bilateral talks with the Minister of External Affairs, my foreign minister appealed to the foreign minister to please encourage Indian businesses to go and open their medical, branches in Nigeria,
yes,
and also some campuses, so that it will, assist in, relieving the burden of travel here, and also accessing the foreign exchange for the parents to send their own children to India. Even though Indian health and education is affordable to us, and we do appreciate the cooperation being given by the Indian government to Nigeria.
Excellency, let's shift the focus now outside Nigeria to Africa in general.
Yeah.
I want to ask you about the status of political and economic integration in Africa. When the OAU first began, it was conceived as a United States of Africa. How far has the African Union approximated that vision, and what are the challenges that still remain?
Well, let me just talk about this African Continental Free Trade Area. You see, in the past, we were unable to create a framework or mechanism that all the countries can come up together for the well-being of African development. But with the African Continental Free Trade Area, which is the biggest in the whole world, and giving access to 54 countries, which connects about 1.3 billion people. And if you look at in terms of gross domestic product GDP, it's about $3.4 trillion. That's a big deal. And through that platform, if African countries come up together by coming up with a significant reform and trade measures that will, what we call in Nigeria, ease of doing business, to make it attractive to those to foreign direct investment, it has the capacity to raise about 30 million people from extreme poverty, and also about close to 68 million people will have the opportunity to raise their own loads, at least to gain kind of prosperity. So, which is really in a big way whereby African can come up together and achieve the objective which the OAU hitherto said, which were enabled, but through the African Free Continental Area, I think it's a platform that can bring development to African countries.
Ambassador Singh, now very often comparisons are made between China's approach to Africa and India's approach. In what way is the Indian model of cooperation with Africa different from China's?
I think the Indian model is older. It is more private sector and people-to-people led. And Indian investors in Africa have the advantage of largely being small and medium enterprises, and they transfer more technology, create more local jobs, and also contribute to regional and domestic trade. So they are not the ones looking for big export opportunities or, big ticket, or they complain too much. They are the ones most integrated into the local. Other than that, when you look at the government side, and you have mentioned the very successful iTech program, India's role in Africa has been to build local capacities. So therefore, Ambassador mentioned the large number of students, you mentioned iTech. Between that, you have a huge investment in human resource development in Africa. So I used to often say that India believes that the best resources of Africa live on it and don't lie under the ground.
Yes.
So that is where I think we are different. And finally, I think some of my friends in the African Union used to say that some of your competitors do more, but we believe India does better. So I think that India does better and looks at the people. I think those are the critical differences between India and others.
I think I would definitely support what he said. To us in Nigeria, we are pleased with the presence of Indian companies because after the federal government of Nigeria, Indian companies are the second largest provider of employment.
Second largest provider.
Yes, so which is good for us. So building capacity is the most important thing for Africa because of the youth, population and the median age that the ambassador mentioned earlier. So to us, when you build capacity, human capacity, then everything can be in place.
Now, Excellency, you mentioned health as a very, very important area of cooperation between India and Africa. How has the Indian pharma industry been a game changer for Africa?
Well, I think the Indian farmer can be a game changer in Africa if they will go to Africa and establish their own manufacturing plant there. It is easier for African governments to save their own resources. It will also provide employment to the locals, and also most of the ingredients that are needed to manufacture of these medicines are easily sourceable in Africa. So I think we will encourage the Indian pharma companies to consider going to Africa and set their own manufacturing plant so that together we can mutually benefit.
And of course, I think India played a very important role in mitigating the AIDS crisis in Africa because, Cipla and Ranbaxy and Indian companies, I think they brought down the cost of the antiretroviral treatment quite significantly.
That's quite true. Cipla and Ranbaxy, do provide life-saving drugs, which is difficult for Africans or Nigerians to access from Western Europe or America because of this expensive. But when India comes in, India became a game changer in that regard, and that's why people have access to that kind of life-saving drugs. We have Ranbaxy is in Nigeria, Cipla is in Nigeria too. So we need more of Ranbaxy and Cipla to be in Nigeria so that can have more access to medicines and that we need. And like I said, I will still repeat that the Indian businesses should please see it a duty to go to Nigeria. Now, the population is there, which means the market.
Correct.
And the purchasing power is there. So we need, we have resources. What we need from India is the capital so that we can together come and harness the resources for the mutual benefit of both countries.
Correct.
And if you look at India, Africa, Forum Summit, is one of the bases, the platform that will engineer this kind of development. And I believe the Prime Minister of India is committed to achieving this. You mentioned what he visited Uganda, and he outlined the 10 points of engagement with Africa, which Africa was top priority. So it is time that we want to see the Indian government to make really a reality Africa be top priority.
You wanted to comment?
I wanted to mention, it is the control of meningitis in West Africa is largely due to Indian medicine. This is a pretty unstated thing. But the young children who live longer now because of no meningitis is actually huge contribution of Indian pharma. 20% of Indian pharmaceutical exports go to Africa and actually make it affordable in African countries. And he's right, we need more investment, but then we need proper markets. Nigeria is a big market, but Indian investors are going to the larger countries. But the regionalization of markets for medicines has not yet happened.
In Nigeria, since the inception of President Muhammadu Buhari's administration, seeing the climate of business in Nigeria, which is kind of outdated, the government established presidential, enabling business environment council, which brings changes, reforms to the way of doing business in Nigeria. We create a lot of incentives for investors, and also in Nigeria, even if a businessman wants to go to Nigeria, can even get a visa on arrival to see how we simplify it. And also Nigeria simplify custom, procedures, as well as also making it easier for investors to also access some credit facilities in the country. And Nigeria also, as part of our incentive, we also give lands, we also give tax holidays in order to attract people coming to invest in our country. And in terms of the labor is cheap. So I think that I see no reason why that Indian business should go to Nigeria. We have 135 companies, but it's not enough. India has the resources and the capital, yes. So Indians should please continue to go to Nigeria and invest more. And it's a win-win situation for the mutual benefit of both countries.
Now, Excellency, you mentioned the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, which of course aims to form the world's largest free trade area, connecting 1.3 billion people in 54 countries. What is the current status? I believe it was delayed because of the pandemic. Is it operational now?
Well, presently there has not been any trade that has taken place under the African Continental Free Trade Area. Countries actually, are encouraged to, put in place significant reform, reform into their economies, and also the trade facilitations to cut the red tape. These are the most important things that countries of Africa should do. Like I can give an example of Nigeria. Because of the reform measures that the government of President Muhammad introduced, a lot of people are going to Nigeria to invest. So I expect that the African Continental Free Trade Area should also emulate Nigeria by encouraging African countries to bring significant reform changes and also trade facilitation so that it cut all the red tape that is used to be people experience about Africa. And I believe doing so will create a situation whereby people will be attractive, Africa will be attractive to go and invest in that in the continent for the well-being of the people of the country.
Now, in light of what High Commissioner Sule just said, Ambassador Singh, how can India take advantage of the African Continental Free Trade Area and boost trade and investment ties with Africa?
So the strength of Indian investors in Africa is domestic and regional trade. And I think they will welcome the Africa Continental FTA because regional markets will emerge, which means that you will be able to sell to a larger number of neighboring countries, which, as High Commissioner said, there will be better trade facilitation. So the market size will improve, which means your FDI becomes more cost effective. I see a surge of Indian investment in Africa to take advantage of these regional FTAs.
Yeah, and you see, if an investor is in Nigeria, he's invariably in West African sub-region, and to a large extent we can call Africa, because you have access to also beside the Africa Free Continental Area in the West African sub-region too. You have access to the market there, and once you are there, there are certain incentives. Which example, like when you pay a tax in one of the African countries, you are not obliged to pay in another country because it's under West African.
Correct.
So I think it's good for the Indian businesses to put more interest in going to Nigeria.
Excellency, you have served in the permanent mission of Nigeria to the United Nations in New York.
Yeah.
Now, both India and Africa are committed to a just, representative and democratic global order. Critical to this is the reform of the UN Security Council, where Africa still does not have a permanent seat. So what is the current African position on this issue, and how can India and Africa work together to reform the institutions of global governance?
You see, the discussion of the reform of the UN Security Council has been a long issue, which has been on for quite a long time, but yet there has not been any substantive, progress. But I will encourage the way that Nigeria and India do collaborate in, platforms like, United Nations Organization, non-aligned movement. And also, we in Africa too, we have the African Group. It's a bloc that we use to advance our own common agenda and voice our own opinion. And also through South-South cooperation, and we will have to continue to be having a common voice so that together we continue to be moving, talking to people about the necessity of having to reform the Security Council. Because presently the Security Council is not democratic. Because if you look at Africa, it's not represented.
Yes.
So considering our population in Africa, and Nigeria, the biggest economy in Africa, and yet we are not in the Security Council. And Nigeria started participating in the peacekeeping operations in the same year that we got independence. We participated in Congo. And since then, Nigeria has been participating in the United Nations peacekeeping operation. And for the last 15 years, Nigeria has been chairing the committee of the peacekeeping in the United Nations, which means we are capable and we are committed to maintain peace and international security in the world. So I think Nigeria should be considered when the time comes for considering who should represent Africa in the Security Council. I think Nigeria is most qualified to be in that seat.
Ambassador Singh, 3.15 million overseas Indians live in African countries, representing 10% of the overseas Indians globally. What role does the Indian diaspora in Africa play in India-Africa ties?
I think in the let's say 20th century, they were largely playing a cultural role. But I think that was also very useful because the philanthropic activity they did actually led to civil society movements from India entering Africa in many ways, education, health and otherwise. But I think in the current phase, it is the economics of things which is guiding them back to India. Most Indians are businessmen. So they see India as a great business opportunity to represent in Africa. So there is a lot of Indian investment guided by them. The trade with India is supported by them, and they become pretty good partners. In fact, now that we pursue trilateral partnerships, many diaspora-led companies are the targets of India's trilateral partners in developing, let's say, agro-processing, refineries, roads, and many such infrastructure areas which India by itself was not going. So I think the presence of the Indian diaspora has really increased the exposure and abilities of India to be seen more visibly in Africa.
Well, that is all the time we have, gentlemen. Thank you very much for your insights. As Prime Minister Modi has said, India's partnership with Africa goes beyond strategic concerns and economic benefits. It is formed from the emotional bonds we share and the solidarity we feel for each other. An African proverb states, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. That sums up the India-Africa partnership, a partnership of equals set to scale new heights and go very far indeed. Thank you for watching Diplomatic Dispatch. This is Vikas Swarup wishing you good night and goodbye.